Have you ever wondered how a company seems to know exactly what you want to buy, sometimes even before you do? Or how, with millions of buyers and sellers out there, the market just lands on one single price for something? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on the art of predicting the future and the science of finding that perfect price.
Okay, let's just dive right in. I want you to imagine, for a second, that you're running a business. You're the boss, you're in charge, and you've got some seriously big decisions to make. You've got to figure out how much of your product to actually make. What price are you going to charge for it? How do you even begin to plan for growth? And really, every single one of those huge decisions, it all comes down to answering one crucial question. What are people actually going to want to buy in the future? And that's where this really powerful tool comes into play. It's called demand forecasting. And it's all about making a smart, educated guess about what your customers are going to want down the line. This is how a business turns what feels like pure guesswork into a real, calculated plan. So how in the world do you peer into the future and predict what people will buy? I mean, it's not like you have a crystal ball, right? But there are some pretty well-established methods. Generally, it all boils down to two main approaches. You can either, go out and just ask people what they're planning to do, or you can stay inside and crunch the numbers on what they've already done. So let's start with the most obvious path. Just ask. Seriously. You can survey your potential customers and just put the question to them directly. Hey, are you thinking about buying this? In a way, you're asking them to do the forecasting for you. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because there's a big trade-off. You could try to survey every single potential customer out there. That's called the complete enumeration method. It's super accurate, no sampling error, but it's also ridiculously expensive and slow. The alternative is to survey a smaller representative sample. That's way more cost-effective and faster, but you run the risk that your little group isn't a perfect snapshot of the entire market. And it's not just about surveying customers. Businesses can also get opinions from a little closer to home. There's the collective opinion method, where you ask your own salespeople for their best guess. After all, they're the ones on the ground talking to customers all day. Or you can bring in the heavy hitters with the expert opinion method. A famous way to do this is called the Delphi method, where you anonymously survey a panel of outside experts over and over, sharpening the forecast each time to try and build a consensus. Okay, so the other main approach is all about the data. Time series analysis is pretty straightforward. It basically just assumes the future is going to look a lot like the past. But then there's the regression method, which is way more sophisticated. It tries to build a mathematical model to understand why you sell what you sell. It's looking for those hidden relationships between your sales and other things, like maybe your advertising budget or your customers' income levels. All right, so you've done your homework, you've forecasted your demand, and you've got a solid plan. Great. But here's the thing. Predicting what your customers want is only half the battle. You're not operating in a vacuum here. We have to look at the other incredibly powerful force that's shaping the market: supply. And supply, well, it follows a really simple rule called the law of supply. And it goes like this. The higher the price of a good, the more of it producers are willing to make and sell. It's a direct relationship. Price goes up, quantity supplied goes up. Simple as that. But why, though? Why does that happen? Well, it's really about two things. First, a higher price is like a big flashing sign that says more profit, which makes producers more willing to supply the good. And second, that higher price also makes them more able to supply it, because it helps cover all those extra costs that pop up when you start making more stuff. You can actually see this relationship laid out in a supply schedule, just like this one. Just look at the pattern here. At a really low price, say $3, producers aren't super motivated. They're only supplying 12 units. But check out what happens when the price jumps all the way up to $15. Suddenly, it's a way better deal for them, and they're willing to supply more than double that amount. And here is that exact same relationship, but in a picture. When you plot that data from the table, you get this classic supply curve that slopes upwards from left to right. It's telling a really simple story. As the price goes up, the quantity producers are willing to supply goes up right along with it. Okay, so it's time for the main event. Let's bring these two opposing forces together. On one side, we've got the buyers, and they want low prices. On the other side, we've got the sellers, and they want high prices. So how does the market figure this out? This is a natural conflict, right? It's a total tug of war. What's good for one side is bad for the other. So how on earth does an entire market, with millions of different people, with different goals,
manage to land on a single price that works for everybody? The answer is this really elegant economic idea called market equilibrium. The best way to think about it is like a perfect balancing point. It's the one price where the plans of the buyers perfectly match the plans of the sellers. Quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. It's the point where the market clears, meaning there's nothing left over. Just look at this table. You can see that at any price other than 10, the whole market is out of whack. At a high price like 20, sellers are putting way more on the shelves than buyers actually want. That creates a surplus. And at a low price like 5, buyers want way more than sellers are making, and that creates a shortage. So the magic number, the sweet spot, for this particular market is 10. That's the equilibrium price. It's the one place where the quantity supplied, which is 6 units, is exactly equal to the quantity demanded. No surplus, no shortage. The market is perfectly balanced, it's stable. Let's break that down for a sec. What happens if the price is just too high, say at 15? Well, sellers make 10 units, but buyers only want to buy 4. That leaves a surplus of 6 units just sitting on the shelves collecting dust. To get rid of that extra inventory, what do sellers have to do? They've got to cut the price. And that action pushes the price back down toward that equilibrium point of 10.
And of course, the exact opposite happens if the price is too low, let's say 5. Buyers are lining up, they want 8 units, but sellers are only offering 2. Now you have a shortage. And all these frustrated buyers who can't get what they want start competing against each other, maybe offering a little bit more, and that bids the price up, forcing it back toward that stable point of 10.
And that's really the beauty of it. You have these automatic pressures, surpluses pushing the price down, shortages pushing the price up, and the market, all on its own, is constantly pushing itself toward that single, stable price, where what's for sale is exactly what people want to buy. So there you have it. It's like an invisible hand, constantly pushing and pulling prices toward that perfect point of balance. But this all raises a really fascinating final question, doesn't it? If markets are so good at finding this stable, perfect price, why do the prices we see in the real world, for our coffee, for gas, for everything, why do they seem to change constantly? What forces are always out there knocking that equilibrium out of balance? That is something to think about.